Well, hello, Moto. It's been a bit. The last premium Motorola I spent real time with still had Moto mods. Qualcomm and Motorola sent over the new Edge Plus for me to test drive and share my thoughts. And it would seem Moto came to play. No pulling punches, top tier specs, high performance, and some unique productivity features. The design is simple and straightforward. It's funny how every manufacturer has a style. This feels like a Motorola. Just talking hardware, a quick pro and con. I love the power button fingerprint sensors, and Moto's is excellent. If I handle my phone, I want it to be unlocked and ready as my eyes are hitting the screen. A physical tactile landmark is the best way to accomplish that. The immediate counterpoint gripe to the power button is I kind of feel the volume rocker is awkwardly high up on the side of the phone. You really got to dance the phone in your hand to get all the way up there. But really, you're gonna see this screen first. And it's a really nice screen, but it's also a little different. Maximum refresh rate is 144 Hertz, where most premium phones deliver 120. All right, that's a little quicker, and you can choose 144 or 60 Hertz in settings, but there's also an AI mode. And the AI mode feels a little different than some of the other variable refresh modes that I've used. Android reports a nearly constant 120 Hertz, except for the lock screen, which drops you down to 48. I almost wonder if this might be some kind of motion smoothing mode, like on a TV, but it's incredibly smooth. So it's a more deliberate screen. High refresh or standard or AI. I want to get really deep in the weeds here. One pretty effect we're seeing employed is window blurs. If you pull your notification shade, not only does your home screen fade, but it also blurs. That's a nice effect, but it kicks up your GPU and draws more power to produce a tiny, barely noticeable aesthetic effect. Moto's here with a crazy fast screen and powerful SoC. There's just no mention of any support for GPU-powered blurring in the developer settings, which just feels so Moto. It's a powerful phone with a pretty screen, but there's a balance of practicality. One last bit of lifestyle hardware. I like the haptic motor. It could be a little more powerful, but I always prefer precise motors over the buzziest or the most powerful vibration. This has a nice little spring pop to typing and interactions. It's just snappy all around. The software helps because this is a lean build of Android, mostly stock with a few customizations and gestures baked in. Moto and Sony run the sleekest games in town. Android 12 no longer feels quite so empty, but there's no heavier skin or alteration running on top. And the phone is a little screamer. We're in an interesting spot right now with smartphones and performance. We might see the same SoC in a bunch of different phones, but obviously each phone handles performance and thermals differently. There are some ideas of phone as communicator and some ideas of phone as computing device. It's pretty clear in using the new Edge Plus, if the user is asking for compute power, the phone is gonna give it to them. Where I've been disappointed in some phones' performance tuning, the Edge is a workhorse. You're running the set of real-world apps I use to test new phones. The Moto is either near or at the top of the charts. Reviewers are kind of lazy in reviewing phones. We read off the SoC and show you the Geekbench score. If you just have those two data points, you might think a Galaxy S22 would perform similarly to a Galaxy Note 22, and you'd be incorrect. There's a significant performance delta between those two phones. We're not talking about average consumers here. We're talking about expensive gadgets. So I think it matters trying to describe what a $1,000 phone can do that a $500 phone can't. The Edge Plus handily pulls away from the S22, and in heavy lifting tasks, we're winning a number of fights against the significantly more expensive Note. This is an important idea for a phone like the Edge Plus. Ready for is a significant differentiator harkening back to Motorola's roots. It's a full-fledged desktop mode with some great bells and whistles. I have a whole separate video on Ready for and how it competes against other desktop modes like Samsung DeX, linked in the description below. Again, if we're spending above average, I think it's worth discussing above average use. Even for Motorola's more businessy roots, It's not a bad gaming machine either. Driving some demanding titles, the phone can maintain some of the highest frame rates I've seen in this generation, where some phones maintain consistent performance thanks to tuning the GPU and optimizing, big euphemisms for setting a cap on frame rate. And this is some of the smoothest gameplay I've yet seen on games like Undead Horde, where Samsung and Xiaomi can fall into patterns of spiking performance and then crashing to a lower frame rate, and spiking and crashing. The Edge will drive a faster average frame rate. Your battery might not last as long as you'd like it to, playing for longer sessions. The phone can get a little uncomfortable to hold, but I've never seen this game played quite this smooth on any device that lacks more exotic cooling. If we want to rein that in, we can go into the settings, turn down the screen to 60 FPS. Some phones are going to do that for you, and you don't have any say in the matter. I like the idea of a computing device that does what I tell it to do. As phones really close in on the performance of laptops, maybe we should take another look at accessories, like maybe a beefier Ready for dock with more aggressive active cooling. That could be a fun DIY project for the channel. I might need to look into that. Like, how could I do push-pull cooling for a phone? The speakers are solid, nice and loud, good clarity in the mids. They could be a little bassier, but like Sony speakers, I think we're trying to minimize distortion at full volume. So you can hear the attack on kick drums, but there's very little bass decay. A quick mention on Bluetooth audio. It's not unique to Moto this year, but it's an interesting spot we're in for higher quality wireless audio. I hosted a video interview with a Qualcomm specialist about Snapdragon sound, and this was shortly before the official Haptics adaptive announcement. When Qualcomm and Moto sent this phone over, they also bundled it with a pair of the Snapdragon Sound True Wireless earbuds for me to take a listen. And they're really good. As more streaming services are offering CD quality and higher, it's exciting getting to play with higher quality audio codecs. This combination serves up that idea really well. But it's going to be a bit of a transition for consumers. Licensing different audio codecs, it doesn't seem there are many phones this year that will cover every flavor. At least for the next year, we'll need to check the label on the box and make sure both phone and earbuds can talk to each other at the highest quality. When we get that pairing right, you get really nice audio. Taking a brief look at the cameras, and this is a refreshing setup. The two 50 megapixel shooters are solid hardware, and Moto software is making good use of that hardware. Output is different than the current trend with Pixels or Samsungs. Instead of playing more into the quality of the light, especially at night, Moto is leaning more on the true white of your subject. Now, I have to reiterate because techies are often really bad at assessing camera performance when we're looking at full auto JPEGs. These are both technically correct. The best kind of correct. One phone is sampling the ugly yellow light in the scene. The other phone is trying to more accurately depict the white of the subject. When you let the camera do the thinking for you, these are the kinds of engineering differences that deliver different experiences on different cameras. If I'm shooting a random selfie at night, I'd probably prefer the Motorola. If I were shooting a concert or a city street scene with rad neon lights, I'd probably want the Pixel. Or I can just accept that a phone camera is more than an auto mode shutter button, and I can dial in my own white balance because I'm a grown-up who spent a lot on a phone. Sorry, I couldn't help that. This really is an above average shooter in this price tier. It just has a slightly different feel than a Samsung or a Pixel. It's the most positive I've been on a Moto camera since the original Z Force. You can drive it into really high level use. Both sensors have options for full resolution output. The manual photo mode pops out solid raw files to edit. The ultra wide can be used as a macro shooter. There are fun dual capture and cutout modes. So far in my use, the only issue has been than aspect ratio while shooting 4K 60. We currently can't select 16:9 video, it has to be 20:9. Other than that, we're doing better than the random camera app crashes I got on the Note 22 running the most recent update to One UI. The selfie camera is interesting. For all the buzz about resolution, it's obviously a smaller sensor than on one of the rear cameras. It's good for a selfie shooter, but if you're at all comfortable using the rear camera to take a self-portrait, obviously the results are going to be better from the rear cameras. Moto is a business brand though, and additional resolution is put to great use with Ready For. Prop up the phone to use the selfie shooter on a video call and you can toggle subject tracking and background blurring through the phone. Trying it out on Duo and Discord and BlueJeans, this is a better solution than waiting for individual app developers to finally better support Android phones. Instead, Moto is delivering that functionality on the camera hardware directly and then sending that image data to the app. This is a really common theme on Motorola software for this phone. A lot of this device is carved up and is directly updated through Google Play. If there's a bug fix for Ready For, we don't have to wait for a full operating system update. It just shows up as an app update. And similar to the selfie camera, the main camera has a separate updated app that tries to improve output when using the camera functionality on social media services. When we're concerned about the lack of big update OTAs, it's this kind of routine maintenance that makes a bigger difference in day-to-day use. A bunch of Android components are updated individually. Google Play updates are tackling more security issues. Qualcomm is delivering more direct support, and manufacturers can take advantage of this too. That might be the concern for a Moto, where the company isn't promising 4th and 5th years of operating system updates, but consumer behavior matters here too. If you're likely to flip your phone around 3 years, this kind of update strategy means you'll be better up to date than on phones that roll all these little patches and fixes into big OTAs. Battery life has been good-ish, but again, your use matters more than my benchmarking. If you ask the phone to do stuff, it will do the stuff. I mean, I was a fan of the LG V60, so I think high refresh rate screens are nifty, but I genuinely don't care much for a smoother app drawer if it comes at the expense of battery life. I really wish we could set clearer performance profiles in a widget or in the notification shade. If I know a game really won't play much above 60 FPS, I can just push one button and toggle it down to 60. If I have a less demanding title that can ramp up to a higher frame rate, I can hit that same toggle and boost my screen. It would be nice if I didn't have to go through settings all the time to manage that. There's a game panel that gives you options for high performance, but nothing changes up the screen response. So back to the battery life. If you crank the phone up, you probably will need to top off during the day. If you run it more like a phone, battery life is pretty good for this generation of devices. Happily, there's real fast charging on tap. The phone comes with a 30-watt charger in the box, but it supports up to 68-watt charging, which smokes the top options here in North America. 15-watt wireless charging is fine. I don't use wireless charging much, and the phone seems warmer when I charge it wirelessly than plugging it in, but it's handy to have in a pinch, as is reverse wireless charging for any of your friends who have a Galaxy S22 or an iPhone SE, because we know those poor folks can't make it through the day. But I digress. Lastly, radio performance for phones this year has generally been excellent, and specifically, the Moto is a champ, easily handling all the bandwidth my home connection can deliver. I've also been happy with some of the rollout for faster 5G in my neighborhood. It's still slow going, but we're finally starting to see benefits above what was possible with LTE in a few select markets. At least getting more sub-6 out to folks. Upgraded radios and antennas are a bit more worth it as we keep traveling down this path, which is about where we should start wrapping this up. I'm using the Verizon variant of the Moto Edge Plus proper support for Verizon UW millimeter wave 5G, 256 gigabytes of storage, full price $929, which is great competition for the $999 MSRP on a 128GB iPhone or Galaxy. It's solid, different pros and cons, but I think those phones all go toe-to-toe. At the time this video was shot though, if you bought the unlocked version, which works better on T-Mobile, the price drops down to $899 for a 512GB version of the phone. I'm very fond of the Moto, and there are little glimmers of phones like the LG V60. We don't get the great quad DAC or the advanced manual camera modes, but we get the current best version of a phone desktop mode, a huge amount of built-in storage, and something I couldn't even cover in this review, support for an active pen stylus. And that's what makes it a great productivity solution. Plus, it's flexible. For someone who doesn't need to step up to a note and always have a stylus inside their phone, the Edge Plus delivers great part-time stylus support on a phone that costs a little less than an S22 Plus and has 4 times more storage. It's a speedy little bugger at a great price. Welcome back, Moto. I'm glad to see this as a premium tier offering. I will of course leave some links down below where you can find more information on the Motorola Edge Plus for 2022, where you might be able to shop one of these bad boys online. As always, thanks so much for watching, sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel. All the support has been fantastic. Greatly appreciate it. The sharing, subscribing, checking out my website, SomeGadgetGuy.com, and all the people that are joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list is a collection of the coolest tech pals in the universe, so I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch. Not so much on the Facebooks and the Instagrams. I've got 2 photos back up on the Flickrs. Turn that flashlight back off, and I will catch you all on the next review.